Hi Quilty friends, welcome back. If you're back, it means that you probably have your eyes all done, and that's great. Okay, we're going to move on to the nose. And the nose is a section that we're going to put together a little differently. And then you will also need a 1.5 by 2.5 white rectangle, a 1.5 by 2.5 white rectangle on this side. And then the chin section is a 3 by 7.5 inch rectangle, and we have to corner pop or take off the corners on two sides, and for that we will need one 2.25 inch square.
This piece is 1.5 by 3.5.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Did I say it wrong?
Yeah, you said 2.5.
Okay, so we'll talk about this later, and then the last thing you'll need is a 1.5 by 6 inch piece that finishes the whole thing off, and this is what we will end up with at the end of this video. Okay, your eyes are already done. We're going to move on to the nose, and the nose is done with something a little different called the split Rex ruler, and we are now on page 2. And we're in this section. Okay, if you do not want to use the split Rex ruler, then I suggest that you go here to this tutorial and watch how to use this method. If you're going to use the split Rex ruler, then hang in there and we're going to learn how to use that right now. The split Rex ruler looks like this. Okay? Seems to have a lot of measurements on it. So something we have to understand first is finished unit refers to this unit, completely finished in the quilt. This unit measures 1 by 2 inches right now. But over here, it measures 1.5 by 2.5 because it's got seam allowances on all sides. So that adds a 1/2 inch in either direction. Okay, so this is what we're going to make. And what you cut is you cut a 3-inch strip. You cut a 3-inch strip of white and a 3-inch strip of red. Okay, and then you only need half of that strip, half of a width of fabric strip. So you were instructed in your directions to just cut that in half. Now, so you have a strip. It's about probably a little shorter than this. It's more than enough. Okay? So it's 3 inches wide, and I have it put here wrong sides up. Both my fabrics are wrong sides up, one on top of the other. All right? And you can find that information in a chart on the directions from the split Rex ruler. And it tells us right here that we want this angle. We want it to be going this way because, see, this is the white and this is the red, and that's how we want it when we're done. Red here, white here. Okay? So we're going to have all of our things wrong side up. Now, that's if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, you're going to have to refer to this and change it, and you're still going to have things wrong side up, but you're going to follow these directions over here for left-handers. Okay? So if you're a right-hander, you're going to put this on here, and the first thing we have to do is we have to square up this edge. So I'm going to put my ruler here and get a nice square straight edge of both my red and my white fabric together. Okay, now I'm going to turn this all around and bring it this direction, keeping my edge nice and together. All right, now I'm going to use this ruler to cut this. And it has 2 places to cut. The first one is like this, and here's my 1 by 2 finished, which is what it is in my quilt. And I'm going to put this big heavy line against the edge of my fabric and this thinner line against the bottom. Okay, and when I have that all lined up,
Don't you want to slide it over?
slide it over.
Yeah. That one. You're putting it on the 4.5 line. There
No,
you go. Yeah.
this against the edge of my fabric.
Yeah.
Okay, and this against the edge down here. All right, and now I'm going to cut. All right, and there's one nose piece. Okay, now I'm going to flip the ruler over, and then I always have to search a little bit because I find it hard to find the cut. Here it says second trim. Okay, I'm going to put that along the bottom and the thin line, diagonal line, kind of diagonal, not exactly, there. So now the heavy line is at the bottom and this thin line is over here, and now I'm going to cut again. That's 2. Okay, I would continue to do that. Flip it over this way and put the heavy line along here and the thin line there. Cut again. That's 3 until I get 14. And I come down here, and like I said, I always have to search for this, and I don't know why. It's because it's at down here and not at the top of the ruler, which is what I'm expecting for some reason. Okay, so heavy line where it says second trim, and that, and cut again, 4. And I just keep going until I've made 14 cuts so that I have 14 noses for all 14 of my snowmen. Okay, now we have to sew this together. And what you're going to sew together, now I'm going to take them, they're both wrong side up, and I'm going to flip it like this so that I have right sides together. And I'm going to take these 2 long edges and I'm going to sew them together. Now, the long edges are bias edges. So I don't want to pull this or stretch this or let the machine pull or stretch it. And as far as the lineup, see, I have a teeny little piece of white there and I have a teeny little piece of red there. That's all, just so that's about even. Okay, because this piece is big and I'm going to trim it down. So I don't have to be totally particular about that. Okay, now I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam, so the edge of this foot that I'm using. It's whatever you have for a 1/4 inch. Okay, and I'm going to sew straight along here. Be sure you keep your raw edges together and that you don't let the machine pull it or you don't fight the machine, just so that this does not get pulled at all. Okay? All right. Now it tells you you can either press to the dark or press open. That's in the ruler directions. I'm going to press open because I always think it's easier to use a ruler if I press things open. Then it's much flatter. And it works in the quilt as well. You don't have to have it pressed any particular way. All right, now what are we going to use here? Now we're going to trim it down. Now remember, we talked about this. It's 1 by 2 here, so it'll be 1.5 by 2.5 here. So I'm going to use the 1.5 by 2.5. Okay? And I'm going to put it so that, how can I show you? This is best. Okay? All right, now on the first cut, this is important that I have the diagonal line lined up with my seam. The only other thing that I need to check is I have some to trim on these 2 sides, and here's my 1.5 and 2.5, and I need some to trim out there for my second cut, and I have some beyond both of those lines. Okay, and this is really nice and lined up on my diagonal. Okay, so I can cut here, and now my least favorite cut, this way, across the top. Okay, so there's my first cut. I take it and I just turn it around. I put my diagonal back on, and now I put my 1.5 and 2.5 lines along the edges. Okay, and just kind of keep wiggling it till you get it so that it lines up. And I think I didn't cut all the way off up here because I'm not getting a good, I didn't, my top edge didn't get trimmed nice
We
and
were at the
straight.
weirdest angle.
I know, let me
Here, we're gonna step over here.
retrim.
This is what it looks like from the other side.
There you go. Now I think we will get it lined. Now it should line up. Yep. Okay. Now these outside lines and my diagonal all line up. And I still have some to trim, which is what I want. Okay, so I'm going to trim there. And then I'm going to trim here. Better job. Maybe. I really should go get the rotating cutting mat. Okay, let's get rid of the garbage. All right, so now we have our nose. All right, and notice that this angle doesn't go right into the corners. That's because we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam and then it will be at the corners. Okay? The other thing to notice is now I'm going to put it into my thing here, and the red straight bottom has to be near the chin. Okay? This is wrong. Okay? The red straight bottom near the chin. Okay, so there that is. So now what would I do? Now I'd sew these to either side. Then I would refer to my pressing directions on my chart. Okay, and then we're going to deal with this piece. This is the chin. And remember, this is a 3 by 7.5 inch rectangle. And what we have to do is we have to remove these corners. And it is exactly the same as what we did in the last video. All right, we're going to remove these 2 corners, and you have to remove the corners alongside. You don't want these 2 corners gone. Okay, the 2 corners opposite each other on a long side. Okay, you're going to use your corner pop ruler again, and everything is exactly the same as last time. You cut a 2 1/4 inch square, which you're going to cut on the diagonal. That becomes your corners. You're going to use the 1 mark right here to cut away each of those corners. The 1. And then you're going to use the 1 after you've sewn them on with your 1/4 inch foot. Then you're going to use that to do your trim down. If you can't remember, refer to the last video. It's exactly the same process. Okay, so then after you have the corners replaced, you sew these 2 pieces together, and then you'll sew the eyes on the top, and then you'll put this 1.5 by 6 inch piece along this side, and you will have Frosty's face. So when you're done with that and you're ready to move on, then come back and we'll start putting the candy cane together.